ZINGOTV on the H.E.R network, channel 251. Don't forget to download the app for ZINGOTV and Barn Burner on the respective app stores for iPhone and Android users. Tonight, I'm really excited. We have Steve Zullo here with us for the show. So for those of you wondering about the last name, he is my brother-in-law, but he is also my financial advisor, mortgage getter, and future planner. And one of the main reasons I wanted him on tonight's show is because over the past few weeks, I've been going over the 8 categories of self-care. And we're going to continue to do that as we go through the holiday season as well. But one of the most important categories, especially right now, I would say, is financial. So we wanted to kind of dedicate tonight's show to financial health, planning, and well-being for you and your families. Over the past few weeks, I'd asked people to kind of email me or message me on Instagram with their questions. So I picked, there seems to be kind of a category of questions. So I picked the top 5 that go in harmony with what most people want to know, especially right now with everything going on, you know, with lockdowns and shutdowns and all things COVID related. So I thought, who better than this guy to have on the show, as he has always guided me the right way to make the right decisions. And he has some amazing advice when it comes to new parents, new moms, investments, everything right up to seniors and mortgages and retirement planning. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Steve Zullo.
Oh, that was me.
That was you. No, we're going to call somebody else to come on the show.
No, I'm nervous. Okay.
No, so why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself other than what I've shared. You know, how can people find you? Where are you at right now? Okay. And how can they reach you if they wanted to?
Okay, Steve Zullo, same last name. Stephen, actually, the PH, if you're looking me up. The website's robinhoodmortgages.ca.
So I want to know the backstory of Robin Hood Mortgages, because I think that's such a cool name.
Oh, thank you.
How did you come up with it? It's because of your rates and what you can access, right?
Not just the rates. Rates are whatever. Rates are rates, right? Everyone wants the lowest rate, but there's a lot more to it. So Robin Hood steals from the rich, gives to the poor.
Right.
I don't do that.
So there's no stealing involved.
No, but in this world, the banks, you can have a $10 million house, the banks still rip you off if you're not taking care of everything properly. And I get into things like, I like to protect I work with the banks, obviously. I work with 50 banks as a mortgage broker, over 100 across Canada, but 50 in Ontario. Through Dominion Lending, we have access to all these amazing credit unions, the big banks, and lots of options. But I like to explain to people the pros and cons of every product, and I work for the client, not for the big bank.
So you're not restricted to a particular lender?
No, not at all.
Awesome.
And I can tell you the pros and cons of every product, whereas someone who works at the big blue bank can't tell you how the penalties really work. They can tell you how it works, but they can't tell you there's alternatives that are much, much better. So
that's the benefit of working, let's say, with somebody in your position, because they have access to all of the bank's options?
Yeah, in general, brokers have access to lots of options, but I've worked at other firms where we didn't have as much selection. So I wouldn't say all brokers are the same. And part of the reason with Dominion Lending is because they're the biggest brokers in Canada. We now do more mortgages than RBC does.
Amazing. And they can find Dominion Lending online, I'm assuming, as well?
For sure.
Awesome.
Through my website, you get Dominion Lending links, dominionlending.ca for sure. But mine is robinhoodmortgages.ca. And phone number is 416-788-1400.
Perfect. So I will have all that information on Instagram as well as Twitter after the show. If you have any questions that don't get answered this evening, feel free to give him a shout and kind of go from there. But I've always kind of seeked advice from him, and he's never led me wrong. So with that kind of being said, so you know what, some of the most interesting questions that came in, like one of them was the most popular. And I have personally noticed this. I do live in the suburbs myself. And what I have noticed is a lot of new people moving in, a lot of investors that were in the area have been selling. So a lot of the homes were investment properties and they were rented out. And I noticed that now they're being sold. And then their owners are the ones that are moving in, a lot of them from the city. Have you noticed that since, I mean, I think it would be in the last 6 months or so, since all the lockdowns and the shutdowns and the cases in Toronto being higher?
Definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard it called the Great Migration in the US, and the same thing here. So I love that term.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the first time, really, is a mass exodus across North America, I would say, well, Canada, the US for sure, people are leaving their tiny condos downtown to move to the burbs. There's a few reasons. One is COVID, obviously, that's a big one. There's several parts of that. One is people were cooped up, especially at the first round of COVID, the total lockdown. They were stuck inside and
living in the condos, right? Without,
living in a shoebox, and so wanting to get out of that. And that was round 2 here as well. Part of it is that because of COVID, mortgage rates have plummeted to well below all-time lows.
So that was part of the question. I kind of summed up 3 different questions into one, but basically a lot of people were saying there seemed to be a trend with wanting to leave the city for the suburbs. Has this affected mortgage rates and options? And if so, how long do you think they have for this?
Totally. Well, I wouldn't say the migration has affected rates, but COVID has affected rates.
Right.
So COVID is causing the rates to plummet, both fixed and variable rates for different reasons we want to get into, but both fixed and variable rates are all-time lows, especially fixed rates. Sorry, it was a part of,
you're going into 3 different.
I went to 3 different
well,
parts.
I did some 3 different questions into one.
So the rates.
So the rates have gone lower, right? So is it a good time to invest, or is it a good time to move, or both?
Let's talk about the moving part and part of the migration. So people are finding that they can buy a house in the burbs in GTA and other cities for less than they were paying in rent.
Right,
Bigger space, and your rents are so. I mean, your mortgage rates are so low that they can afford it.
Right.
And that's incredible. But that's caused a whole bunch of things have happened because so many people are moving up to the burbs now. Rents are actually dropping downtown.
Oh wow!
I've spoken to property managers who say the rents have dropped 20%.
Oh my goodness! And rent was quite high last year.
Last year, you were competing to get into a place.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now landlords compete to get you if you're renting.
So it's good news for renters, I would say, that want to be in the city, want to be downtown.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah. And of course, the Airbnb market has kind of died. So a lot of those investors that are Airbnb condos, they're like, now I got to rent it out or sell it. That's also helping drive the prices down. Not all prices driving rents down. Prices haven't come down yet in the condo market. They're up about 1% roughly from last year in September and October. October.
So have prices gone up?
Condos are stable.
For the suburbs, have they gone up?
Suburbs have gone up a lot. Housing got up in general, detached and detached houses, even townhomes. When the burbs are going up a lot,
Amazing. Okay, so a good time to rent downtown if needed, and a good time, I would say, to get a mortgage in general.
Yeah, even this time of year, part of it too is now the bidding wars all over the suburbs.
Yes.
So places that normally don't have bidding wars aren't familiar. Like Toronto, we've seen this for the past decade plus, right? But now in the burbs, even like St. Catharines and different way out from Toronto, bidding wars like crazy.
Oh, wow.
And people aren't used to that.
Yeah.
And Toronto's a different market now, the condo market. But that's kind of fueling things too.
Yeah.
And there's a few concerns there. Like one is you're asking how that affects people, how the Great Migration has.
Yeah, exactly.
So prices going up is part of it. Another part is with all these bidding wars, what's happened hasn't happened to me personally, saying knock on wood, to my clients. But what happens is that, let's say you're approved for $800,000 and you're bidding on a place that was $750. Bidding wars happen. Let's say it ends up selling for $950. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. Let's say you're approved for $1 million.
Yeah.
That's typical around here now.
So that's your maximum.
That's what you're
approval.
approved for, yeah. So you think I'm good for $1 million, but I'm buying a house for $800,000.
I see.
So
what
you think
saying.
you're fine. There's a bidding war, and it sells for $950. The problem is when you have to get the mortgage, it has to be appraised. If the appraisal doesn't come in high enough, the bank doesn't care you're in a bidding war.
I see.
They think it was listed at 8. It was probably worth 8, or maybe it's worth 750, 790.
Right.
But you paid $950.
You have to come up with the rest of that yourself.
But the house isn't worth $950.
Oh my
we think it's worth $850.
Right.
So that's happened a lot.
Right.
Just
almost every home in my area that I've seen, the sign, as soon as it says sold, it says above asking. So when that does happen and you are engaging in a bidding war, you end up paying more. What happens to the rest of that mortgage?
So you have to be cautious. If the bank decides the appraisal value isn't there, it's not worth what you paid, you have to come up with the difference.
I see.
So
and then are you stuck?
A percentage of the house.
You have to come up with. There's no back.
Then it gets really ugly. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
The lawyers
That's
have
good
to be
to know.
involved to renegotiate. It gets ugly.
Oh wow.
So And another thing here is people are going in with firm with no conditions.
Right.
And they
right.
think, oh yeah, my realtor wants me to go with no conditions.
Right. Right.
There's lots of people bidding. I have to get this place. I'm approved for $1 million. I'm good. But I always say, and basically every mortgage broker says this, to never waive all your conditions.
Right.
Because you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
The appraisal might not come in. Lots of things can happen.
Oh my goodness. So 2 pieces of information I just got from that, brand new to me. Never waive all the conditions, and make sure that even in your head, if you're calculating that you can afford a higher mortgage than what you were approved for, do not sign unless you know that the bank will also approve that, because you will have to come up with the difference yourself, which I had no idea. So that's really good to know.
Yeah, and even if you're pre-approved, a lot of times banks, almost all the banks now pre-approve you, but they're not fully qualified. Like the bank will say you're approved for 800,000, but they haven't looked at your documents. They haven't collected your NOAs, your no assessment.
So what would you recommend for somebody that's starting to work with you to go over all their documents? You have the meetings first, you ensure that they will be approved, and then to start their search.
Yeah, exactly. And I will go get the pre-approval. There's only a couple lenders that actually fully underwrite the pre-approval. That means they look at it, they look at every single piece of paper.
Right.
Exactly what you qualify for, and say, yes, you're good for this number, for X dollars.
So then do you recommend basing your maximum budget, maybe $50,000 to $100,000 lower in this market, just in case you do end up in a bidding war and you don't want to lose that house while it's hot?
As a general rule, I would say that for everybody, you shouldn't max out. If you're maxed out on your ratios, again, in general, you shouldn't. You should buy something
always
cheaper.
Leave wiggle room, right?
Not just because of COVID, just in general. I think the limits could be a little too high. And if you're stretched to the last dollar that you qualify for,
you're asking for
it's different for everyone. Every circumstance is different, but in general, you should stay below that for sure.
Okay, awesome. Good to know. I know you mentioned that the mortgage rates are great right now. What are some options for people, especially younger people, that want to secure the rate? They want to take advantage of it, but in today's situation, they're unsure of employment. They don't want to get rid of that savings right now by putting it into a home, but they want to take advantage of the rates, say maybe 6 months to a year from now.
So general rule is rate holds are good for 3 to 4 months in general. That's what most banks offer. And I have a couple lenders that will do 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Which is great, especially right now. That takes you into the
yes,
market,
exactly.
nice.
Way more predictable, right?
Yeah. And let's say if I get you a 6 month rate hold and 2 months from now rates start climbing up, I'll get you another 6 month rate hold.
On the initial hold, or what is?
Yeah, from that point, if I see rates are going up, I'll say let's get a new rate hold. So we do it. Let's say we do it in January, now you go till June.
How many times can you do that? Can somebody keep doing and you? Oh, you can.
Yeah, basically, and we can change lenders sometimes.
Amazing. Okay.
Approval, but there's also an option. I have a couple lenders that will do 1 year rate holds. And they were doing 3 year rate holds until recently. COVID kind of changed things.
Is it because the rates are so low they won't do 3 years?
Because of rates and too much turmoil in the markets, and they don't want to tie up their money for 3 years. But on new construction, we can do 3 years in a couple cases again.
Oh, wow. So if you've purchased from a builder and it's not going to be ready for 2 years, you can hold that rate right now. You
have 2 options, a couple options on my side, but I also recommend they look at the option the builder offers them. Because whoever did financing for the builder often offers financing to the buyers as well, and they're able to do 3 year rate holds.
Amazing.
So I usually tell clients check what they have there too, because I want you to get the best deal. I may not get the deal. I may not get the mortgage ultimately. But I want to make sure that's Robin, right?
Yeah, just
I want to make sure you get the best deal possible. So check with the builder for sure, and also come back to me.
That's amazing. See, I didn't know that either. I have had a few friends, especially first-time home buyers, that have bought directly from the builder and waited until the house is ready, 3-4 months before the action date, and the mortgage rates have completely changed from when they first purchased the home in the market, because it does take 1 year to 2, sometimes 3 for the house to be ready. So just knowing that you can hold on to that, especially for people that are looking to purchase from a builder right now, if they can secure these rates, that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it wouldn't be, let me backtrack a little bit. It wouldn't be these rates. Like my lowest rate today is 1.25%.
Wow. So there's certain rates you can secure, and then the lowest.
So that 3 year rate will be higher. It won't be 1.29, but it won't be 1.25.
But chances are it'll still be.
It could be 2%. Could be close to all time lows anyway.
Right.
Okay, definitely get it for sure.
And secure it while you can,
you're
right?
safe. If it goes down, then we'll get you new ones, right?
Right. Yeah. So a question that I think is on everybody's minds: with the shutdowns and all the unpredictability that are currently happening, especially, I mean, all over the world, but especially, you know, where we are in Ontario, what are some options that people have in regards to their mortgages when it comes to assistance, maybe with payment, deferrals? If somebody is currently in a position right now, as many people are, where they're not allowed to work, they want to work, they've been, you know, forced to close, what can they do if they just cannot make the next mortgage payment? What access, like what options do they have at their access?
Wow. Well, some good news and bad news. There are options for sure. The big government deferral that everyone heard about all over the news, right? That was a 6-month program. You were able to defer your mortgage payment for up to 6 months.
Right.
But that ended September 30th.
Right. So they can't apply for that any longer.
So that program is done. Okay. If you apply before September 30th, you could have up to 3 more months of those payments. So you're still good for another till the end of the year. But as of October 1st, not all is lost. You still have access to the normal programs that lenders had available. So we always had homeowner assistance programs. The banks don't want to take your house. It's not like, you know,
it's trouble for them too, right? To have to, yeah.
They don't want to do that. Maybe some private lenders, maybe there's some shady people do that kind of stuff. Right. But no, the banks do not want to take your house. If they can work something out and they see that it's a temporary thing and get back on track, they will try to keep you in the house. It's everyone's benefit. And especially if the mortgage is insured. If you bought the house, insured means you bought the house with less than 20% down. Right. That means it's insured by Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC. But it could be Genworth, who is now called Sagen, or Canada Guarantee. There's 3 insurance companies. Right. If it's insured, if it's insured, it means the government basically has backed that mortgage. The bank knows they can't lose its guarantee by the government, basically. And they're more flexible. I see. Even if it's not insured, first thing, call your mortgage broker. If you're not a mortgage broker, call your bank directly, your lender, and talk to them, tell them the story, and do it sooner rather than later. Prior to missing a payment. For sure. Right. Once you miss 1 or 2 payments, it's much harder. You lose, you can't access their trust anymore. And you can't, right. Yeah, so, the sooner you do it, the more options you have. Don't wait. I know everyone tends to wait things that can work out. Right. Just get on it. Talk to the bank first. Right. Okay, good. Well, I mean, so basically, even though the COVID relief assistance program kind of is finished at the moment, there's always other options that they can. Yeah. Okay, that's good to know as well. So what is your best advice for people that want to purchase in a year or two? What should they start doing? What documents do they need to have once it comes time to apply for the mortgage? What's the best way to save for their down payment? How do you make sure you don't ruin your credit in the next 2 years? What should be the pre-planning process prior to finding you? My mind's racing to answer about 20 different parts of that.
I just feel like a lot of times we have, you know, a house purchase in our mind, or we have a goal or an investment we want to do, but a lot of people don't necessarily think about the homework that comes with that.
Yeah, there's a lot. Okay, good. I love these questions. You're awesome. You're pretty good at this. So part of it is get the rate hold, obviously.
So first, rate hold.
Yeah. And secondly, go to a mortgage broker.
Mortgage broker.
Who's unbiased and can advise you on lots of lenders, lots of products across the country, right? Anywhere. And get a firm, a real pre-approval, not just pre-qualified. Even if the bank calls it pre-approval, if they haven't looked at your documents, you haven't given them your tax returns and stuff, and shown them your pay stub, it's not a real pre-approval.
So what documents
get as real as you can
should they have prepared?
It depends on on your situation, but in general, all your tax documents, notice of assessment, T4s, recent pay stub. Well, pay stub and job letters can come later though. But there's a bunch of documents, and they'll give you a list. Get all those together. Sorry, there's something else there. The 1 year, the rate hold.
So down the road, what
how to prepare
for? Yeah.
One great suggestion that I've heard, I've told people is pretend like you're already living in that house. Okay. So if you're renting for $1,000 a month, but your house is going to cost you $3,000 a month.
Put aside $3,000 a month.
Pretend I like you're spending $3,000 a month, not just your mortgage, but your property taxes, your heat. Right. Because your condo, maybe the heat was included. If your cable was included, and now it's not, add $100 for cable. Like pretend you live in that house and bank all that extra money. That's really good advice. It's not such a shock when you first move in and all of a sudden your bills are, you know, not anything that you're your
used
lifestyle
to.
Adapts to it already.
That's awesome.
And you can change your mind still. Once you bought the house and you're in that mortgage, it's much more difficult and much more costly to change your mind. You can say, you know what, I don't need that 3,000 foot house. Maybe I could go with 2,000. Right. Because I want the extra $1,000 a month in my pocket for investments or for going out to dinner once in a while.
And if nothing else, then you have a savings. When you move in for furniture shopping.
Oh, that's a big one. That's one of the things I thought of right away.
That's what a lot
Thank
of people
you.
don't take into consideration, right? You move into the house, but it's bare because you spent all your money on the outside of the house, right? So to kind of factor that in.
Do not, I beg you, go furniture shopping or buy cars before closing on your house.
That was actually the next question.
If you qualify for it, your income's high enough, you can, but check first. Check with your mortgage broker, your banker, make sure it's okay before you do that stuff.
That was one of the questions. What should they do in regards to cars or an investment property? Anything good that comes along within the next 2 years while they're saving up their down payment? What's a big no? No new cars within what period of time prior?
Well, it's all case by case, right? So if your income is high enough to qualify, then no problem. You could buy the car. Just check first.
Always check with your broker
don't
first.
Don't think, oh, I'm good because my mortgage broker said this. But then you buy a car with an $800 a month payment.
Right.
Basically, every $400 payment you have new means you qualify for $100,000 less mortgage.
So I think this is so important. I don't think a lot of people know this. So for every $400 that you owe that you owe monthly as a bill, that reduces your mortgage affordability by $100,000.
Roughly, yeah.
Wow. And so what's your most recommended? I know there's a baseline for when it comes to the lender of debt to income ratio, but to live comfortably, what's your recommendation for an average couple, two people purchasing a house together? Is it 32%? That's okay?
32 is good. That's probably, that's a decent number.
Because I think some banks will do up to 40%, right?
Yeah, up to it depends on every situation again, but maximum usually is 44 total debt service ratio. That's
when are you in trouble? When it's above 40?
Up to 40% is okay in general, and you qualify with the banks. But I don't necessarily think that everyone should be maxed out.
No,
that's most of the bank will qualify you for it. So it's case by case. If you're, put it this way, I don't live the lifestyle my parents did. My parents didn't go out to dinner twice, 3 times a week, and 3 lunches a week. We do that. They didn't go to the movies and spend $100 on free tickets and popcorn, right? And they paid cash for their cars all the time, that kind of stuff. So it's different lifestyle. So it's up to everyone. If I went to live like my parents, I could go much higher in my debt service ratios because my other expenses are much smaller.
Right.
So it's what you choose. What's important to you?
What's affordable to you?
But you don't want to be stretched out to the point where everything's going to your house and you don't have a flexibility to enjoy your life and do things with your kids, that kind of thing, right? So there's no firm number. It's different for everybody.
Okay, sounds good.
Hope that makes sense.
Yeah. So some of the younger generation, first-time home buyers, have always been renting, maybe still living with family, are wondering, and the same question from 3 different people. If you currently have a down payment, whether it's a gift from your parents, it's money that you've saved, so they have the down payment, they want to make the investment, they cannot afford to live in it themselves every month. What is the best case scenario for somebody that says, you know what, I have $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 that I want to invest. I would like to invest it in a property, but I cannot carry the mortgage every single month, and I don't want to have to carry it right now, but I want to secure that property as an investment, and I want to put my money somewhere where I know it's going to be safe and it's going to grow. What are their options if they have a down payment, but their position and their current salary won't qualify them as a home owner? Would it qualify them as a homeowner renting out?
Yeah, there's a couple options there. One is you could buy a rental property even though you don't own your own home.
So rental property being a property that you own for the purpose of renting it out to a tenant. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a great way to get in the market where you haven't qualified yet.
Right.
So yeah, that's one way to do it. And it could be, if you're not living there, it could be farther out. Like say you live in Toronto and you can't afford a $1 million home. Maybe you can afford the $500,000 home an hour and a half out of the city.
Right.
And if you don't want to live there, you may want it later on, or you just may want tenants to, may want to have a great investment property. You find the right tenants and they're going to pay that in your mortgage. If you rent the rest of your life and the mortgage is just covered by the rent, bottom line is 20, 25 years from now, your house is paid off.
Right.
And then you have a pension for yourself if you want.
Right.
That's $2,000 a month or $3,000 a month income for you. Or you have the house that you can move into, or you have the house you can sell. $500,000 today, maybe it's worth $1.5 million 30 years from now. So definitely great. And another suggestion is you could buy a house with a basement apartment or a second unit. It could be a duplex, above ground duplex with 5% down.
Right.
and still use that rental income to help you qualify.
And still live, okay.
So you may not qualify on your own, but you can have that. You even buy actually up to a fourplex with 10% down.
Oh, wow.
And people don't realize that. But that opens up so many options.
Why is that? Because there's so many different tenants that it's easier to qualify with less down?
Partly because the insurers allow it. CMHC, CAG, kind of guarantee allow you to buy a fourplex with 10% down, and they allow you to use some of that income.
Amazing.
So that's an option.
Right, and it's a great investment, right?
Yeah, and there are people who do that. Like a lot of young people are, usually the people who are financially sophisticated, or their parents are.
Right.
They'll say, "Why do you want to buy a $600,000 house when you could buy a $1 million fourplex? I'll help you buy it.
Right.
You have a unit, you have 3 renters." So it definitely works.
My goodness,
great
that
strategy
needs to
when you
be
can do it.
a complete episode on its own, because that's amazing for especially younger people to be able to make such an investment like that for their future on something that they probably don't think they can, right? When it comes, I mean, for me at least, when it comes to thinking of an investment, I would think a townhouse, a condo, rent it out, but a fourplex is something that does not come to mind. But now that you're explaining it, sounds amazing.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's good to know. So there are options available even for people that
Oh, sorry.
can't
Oh
carry
my
the
God.
mortgage.
This live thing is
That's
killing me.
what
I'm
you're saying,
nervous.
though.
I'm nervous. If it wasn't a camera on me, yeah, I am saying that, but sorry. Let me retract something. Sorry, everything I said is correct. I just want to add one thing. If it's an investment property where you're not living,